you that Sean
Disclaimer.
Combs has been indicted on
Linda
racketeering and sex
Ross.
trafficking
Prophet.
charges really isn't a shock. We've been telling
Disclaimer.
you for
Prophetess
months
Linda
that
Ross.
he was under investigation by the Department of Homeland Security, which investigates sex trafficking. But for someone like Combs to go from living in the lap of luxury to being behind bars, that has to be an absolute shock to him. Combs has apparently been in New York since late last week in anticipation of the indictment. News Nation obtained exclusive video of him talking with his attorney and one of his sons in a park over the weekend. Here's Combs' lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, outside of court.
This is what we've been expecting since the searches in March. He, to his great credit, he voluntarily came to New York. Not a lot of defendants do that. He came to New York to basically engage the court system and start the case.
So Mark Agnifilo said he believes Sean Combs should be released, but federal prosecutors wanted him detained. They claim he's a flight risk, and they wrote in a detention letter. Most glaringly, the defendant also poses a significant risk of obstructing justice. Indeed, and as set forth below, during the course of the charged conduct, the defendant has attempted to bribe security staff and threatened and interfered with witnesses to his criminal conduct. He has already tried to obstruct the government's investigation of this case, repeatedly contacting victims and witnesses and feeding them false narratives of events, as described in detail below. Federal prosecutors claim Combs created and ran a criminal enterprise through his businesses, including Combs Global. Here's U.S. Attorney Damian Williams.
The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice.
Federal prosecutors claim Combs used his businesses to host freak-offs, which are elaborate sex parties in which sex workers were employed and sometimes were transported across state lines.
As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair.
Now, one of those incidents of hitting and kicking involved Cassie Ventura, Combs' ex-girlfriend, whose bombshell civil suit really seemed to open the floodgates for other lawsuits and possibly even led to this investigation. Cassie Ventura's attorney has said in the past that she was willing to cooperate with federal investigators. But now that Combs has been indicted, Ventura and her attorney, Douglas Wigder, are not commenting at all. The U.S. attorney went on to detail the incident involving Ventura, which was also detailed in a letter asking the judge to keep Combs behind bars until his trial.
Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal.
Disclaimer.
In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance. Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse.
Federal prosecutors referenced that 2016 hotel incident with Cassie Ventura when asking the judge to keep Combs in jail, writing that he has a history of trying to bribe people. They wrote, when a member of hotel security staff intervened, the defendant attempted to offer the hotel security officer a stack of cash to ensure his silence. After the security guard refused the defendant's bribe, and after coordination between the defendant and his employees, the defendant's staff contacted other members of hotel security. At the same time, staff members were in close communication with the victim of the assault as well, all in an effort to cover up the defendant's assault and to prevent the incident from being publicly disclosed. Within days of the incident, the surveillance video disappeared from the hotel's server. Combs is also accused of transporting women sex workers across state lines for the freak-offs. Federal prosecutors also noted an incident from 2011, where they claim Combs and a co-conspirator kidnapped a person. Then, according to the letter, approximately 2 weeks later, the defendant's co-conspirators set fire to individual one's vehicle by slicing open the car's convertible top and dropping a Molotov cocktail inside the interior. Police and fire department reports extensively document the arson and conclude that the fire was intentionally set. Multiple witnesses would also testify the defendant bragged about his role in destroying individual one's car. Federal prosecutors also argued that Combs owned guns and has used them to threaten and intimidate people, and they cited photos of guns and magazines that they found in Combs's home. But Combs's lawyer argued he should be allowed to post bail, calling him eminently trustworthy. Mark Agnifilo proposed a $50 million bond package using Combs's Miami home as collateral. Agnifilo noted that Combs has been trying to sell his jet since April of this year and has actually signed an agreement to do so. Combs also made a reservation to stay at a hotel in New York as he awaits trial, but the judge was not persuaded. He ordered that Sean Combs will remain detained until his trial on these charges. I want to take just a moment to tell you about Upside. It's a free app that will give you cash back on things like food and gas. This is not a confusing rewards program. Upside will give you actual money that you can transfer right into your bank account. Download Upside and claim an offer for whatever you're buying. You pay as usual using a debit or credit card. I've used Upside and gotten $9 back on gas and pizza. You can't beat that. You can use Upside at places like Shell, Exxon, 7-Eleven, and at restaurants like Chipotle, Dairy Queen, Domino's, and Taco Bell, just to name a few. So to find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description or download Upside using the QR code on your screen and use our promo code CRIMEFIX to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. That's promo code CRIMEFIX for an extra 25 cents back on your first gallon of gas. Justin Paperny